Hello guys, David Bose here on a walk. And it's a beautiful day. I'm going to get up here and find a spot to sit down or find a trail or something, and we're going to talk about a few things. So I can get up on top here to start with. A little windy today. Oh buddy, look at that. Is it? Well, I like it up here on these cliffs. So I was thinking about the real meaning of Genesis chapter 1. I mean, not saying or taking away from the creation story, because it's certainly a creation story. Although create never meant bring something from nothing. You know, just voila, big bang, wham, there it is. Thank you, ma'am. Wait a minute, if it came from nothing, why are you thanking ma'am? Mama. Well, it's a story about creation in a sense. It really is. But it's an ever ongoing creation, and it starts over again in every mind, in every being. And this is the story of the original being, or the philosophical story, I guess you would say, or the spiritual understanding of the universe. And so it starts off with in the beginning. So you can say in the beginning, or you could say to start things, you know, to start off. The first things first. This is the beginning. Elohim, plural. El, as we've said in every language, is the all. It's the definite article. El, la. And it is the whole. It is the all. It is W-H-O-L-E, the circle. The whole that has the compartment that houses everything. And it's also hello. You know, it's the center, the halo over your head, the power at the beginning with the top of your head. Hello, halo, salute, salutations. Sal means saliva, the minerals, salt. And it starts with helium or halo and hydrogen, or the height. And it's the elemental charts, or the helium chart. Elios, the city of El. And all of those words tell us what this word Elohim means. It's Allah, or El, or Eloah, with the plural. And it is the all. And so it's the all. And you say, oh, but wait a minute. Aren't you saying that you're not a deist? That there was no being, just the all? Well, no, the all is the being. The universe is living. And if you want to understand the all is within itself, and it has to kind of separate itself into many different aspects. So, for the all to make the creation from within itself, remember it already existed in the beginning, all, plural, all the all, and Jesus said, ye are Elohim, and the scripture cannot be broken. So that was all of us, right? From the founding of the world, we clapped our hands for joy at the founding of the world. We're all there with the Lord. Proverbs 8 says that Sophia was there in the beginning as the master architect. John 1:1 says that Jesus, the Word, was with the Lord from the beginning. Well, that's the firstborn among many brethren, the only begotten, which in him we were all there in Christ from the founding of the world. We were all there clapping our hands, including Job. Where were you, O Job, at the founding of the world? Well, he was there clapping his hands for joy. And all the morning stars shouted for joy, because the morning stars come up on the horizon in the morning. So anyway, it starts off with Elohim. In the beginning, Elohim. So if the word light means deity, for deity is light, deity is love, deity is spirit, then light, which we know is enlightenment, what does wind spirit mean if light means enlightenment or thought? What does spirit mean? The force of thinking. That's what it means. Because the wind is a force that affects the world. It's the invisible power of wind. It causes, in reality, by light or sun shining down on the earth, matter. The earth or matter. It heats up the matter and it creates motion, or a vortice motion. So then, wouldn't spirit be energy, or the motion that the light causes when it hits the earth? See, we're touching on some profound connections between physics, philosophy, and the etymology of the words, because in both ancient concepts and modern science, the link between the wind, spirit, and energy is very real. Wind and spirit is breath, according to the Bible. The words for wind and breath and spirit are the same word. The Latin word spiritus literally means a breath, or to breathe, and is a direct parallel to the ancient Greek word pneuma, which is wind or breath, and the Hebrew ruach, which is spirit or wind. So the ancient individuals viewed the invisible moving air as the literal breath of life, the animating of matter. So, wind is essentially invisible energy in motion, and it's primarily driven by the sun, which heats the matter. When the sun shines on the earth, it heats the ground and the water, but unevenly in different places at different temperatures because of the mountains that make shade, or the trees, and under the trees is a different temperature. So you have different temperatures, and this causes high pressure, low pressure. The uneven heating creates changes in the air pressure, because nature always seeks balance. Air moves from high pressure areas to low pressure areas to equalize the temperature, and that causes wind. Science says that movement or motion is usually in a vortice, but only because they believe the earth is a globe and it's spinning. Kind of like how water runs down the drain one direction north of the equator, and it goes the other direction in south of the equator, and they claim that's proof the earth is a spinning ball. But you see, if there is a low pressure and a high pressure that comes together, and the high pressure pushes down and enters into the lower area, it discombobulates the lower pressure, and it has to go somewhere. They have to start becoming one, and they have to start being unified. And in order for the one area to go into the other area, that creates motion. I don't believe it's because the earth is a globe and we're spinning. I believe that the natural motion between two things that come together and have to create equilibrium, and they have to start sharing each other's energy, and then something that is hot that meets something cold, the cold will get warmer and the hot will get colder, and that creates the motion. Why it always goes in a rotation is interesting, but look at the clock. Forward is clockwise. The days in the calendar go forward. Everything goes forward clockwise. So clockwise depends on where you're at, whether you're in the area which is on one side of the sun or whether you're in the area which is on the other side of the sun. Why would it matter? We're not on a globe, because the sun is going around above us and creating that vortex in one particular direction. If you're on one end of that arc, you're going to have a spin-off in that direction. If you're on the other end of that vortex of the sun's rotation, you're going to be spun off in a different direction. This is the same thing that happens in hurricanes that spin off twisters or tornadoes. So it causes the moving air to twist, creates vortices like cyclones and wind currents that we see on the earth. Now, if there are mountains in the way, or valleys, or rivers, or other different pressures, then it's not going to be a perfect circle. It's going to create violent straight winds at times. But ultimately, if there is a flat surface, it's just going to be a circle. And up in the air, it's going to usually be a circle until it hits the earth, and then it disrupts that bubble. Well, energy is defined as the capacity to do work or cause change. Since wind is matter in motion caused by the sun's energy, it is a physical manifestation of the kinetic and the thermal energy as we've outlined. So if light represents the source of consciousness or illumination, the thinker, then spirit, wind, perfectly represents the animating force of thinking. It is the invisible energy, the drive. It's the motion that brings ideas into the physical reality. It brings things that are different, change. In both ancient philosophy and even modern science, then, spirit can be understood as the active, dynamic energy that sets the universe and human thought into motion. So if light is the thinker, which when he is enlightened, he has this light. I mean, the being exists before he begins to think, even if he's not thinking. So that's where in Genesis 1, it's just the all. So Genesis 1 is a description of creation, but not just the above or the all creation, but every individual is a creator. And this story in Genesis 1 is a description of every individual as a being and how we as a being think and how those thoughts create the world around us and our circumstances. And if you've ever seen books like The Power of Positive Thinking or The Secret or books like that, even Science and Health by Mary Baker Eddy, which is a really, really important and good book, you'll realize that they taught these principles, but not fully, because there's always little gaps in these theories that people present. I think the best one that's been written up to now is Science and Health by Mary Baker Eddy. But mankind still has not been able to master this because there's something missing. They're not understanding. If they understood that Genesis chapter 1 is the blueprint of how we are to create our reality, how the original reality was created, and how it will be created again individually in each and every one of us. The same process happens because inside of every whole there is multiple smaller pieces that are also whole pieces that also have up and down, left and right, and every variable. So the universe has smaller pieces all the way down to the individual and the cells and all the way down to the smallest little particles that we could even imagine But all that really is important is knowing that the universe, we can't get to the end of it because it's infinite. But to understand it, we understand its parts. So the wind is the motion of energy, and matter is energy at rest. If we divide the earth, or matter, mother, the material, into two, as Genesis says, land and sea, that's why matter, or mother, is Mother Earth, and maritime, or the sea, because the world, or what was made, the earth, included the waters. There were waters above the firmament and waters below the firmament, but everything above and below the firmament was the earth. So this is why, and I had wondered this myself, if the earth is feminine and the water is feminine as well, are there two different women? Or is it just the feminine earth divided into land and sea? Well, that's the answer. Because if you divide the earth, as Genesis says, land and sea, it seems that the land is consciousness, fixed, beliefs. It's what you know that has boundaries, stable. And the water is emotion, and it's confused, more like unformed ideas that haven't been brought into an area with boundaries. It's not fixed. It's part of the earth, but it's the deep. The depths of it are unknown, and it's fluid. It doesn't have form yet, so we're not aware of exactly what all of this is. It's an infinite depth, the bottomless pit of this deep. But that's part of the feminine. The heavens is the male. So it's a fascinating way to map the elements and to map what Genesis is talking about onto the human psyche. If you view creation, the story of creation, as an allegory for the development of the consciousness, then this division that we're making makes a lot of sense. In this symbolic framework, the earth, or the dry land, represents the solid ground of our reality. The structure. Land is stable, defined, and has boundaries. This mirrors the fixed nature of our core beliefs and the structures of the ego. The consciousness, on the other hand, is part of ourselves. So the conscious part of ourselves that we can stand on and build on, just as matter is energy at rest, land is frozen or manifested state of our thoughts. It's the fulfillment or the manifested state of our thoughts. Water, by contrast, is fluid. It's deep. It's constantly shifting. Like emotion, water has long been the universal symbol for the feelings in the body. And it can be a calm and reflective peace, or a stormy and overwhelming confusion like chaos. In Genesis, the Spirit hovers over the face of the deep, or the waters, before form exists. There wasn't any land made yet, but the Spirit hovered over the waters. So this suggests that the water represents the vast, unformed potential of our emotions and the subconscious mind and everything that hasn't yet been solidified. Just thoughts before you've chosen the end result of those thoughts. And when they're solidified, we picture it as creating our reality as, okay, we've made the dry land. Now we have something to stand on, stability. And from there, we can talk about mountains, which are heightened or lofty states of beliefs that we make into like governments. or something like that. That's why mountains are governments. And we'll talk about the meaning of rivers and trees and animals and birds and fish and all of that. Paradise is the language, the original language. But it's also the blueprint for how we, as human beings, can make our world exactly what we wish as the creator of our reality. So, in Genesis, deity divides the waters from the dry land. Psychologically, this mirrors the process of individuation. So we define the self. We have to define ourself. What is it that we are, and what is it that we're making that we don't like, that's not part of us, that we see it came from something within us, but it's not what we want to form. We're not wanting to make those ideas into permanent forms. So it's not a solid fact. It's just we have to distinguish between the solid facts, I should say, which is land and beliefs that are permanent, and what is just passing or fleeting, like the water or emotions. So when the land and the sea are mixed, then you have mud, you have a swamp, which symbolizes a state where a person cannot distinguish between their thoughts and their emotions, which is where most people are in this world. And this leads to the confusion that we've mentioned. And if you pay close attention to what I'm trying to share with you today, this isn't just a philosophical exercise. This is education for your mind, so that you can understand how you are making your world around you a living hell, and how you can stop doing that and create a perfect paradise. And all of us, and we need to teach our children this as well. So we have to separate them. We have to separate the thinker, the light, or the enlightened ideas, the ideas that we want. Okay, light is an enlightenment. Oh, what I want. A flash in your mind about, oh, there's the picture. It's all enlightened, what I want. But we have to separate that light and create a space where we can navigate our emotions without being drowned by these emotions in this swirling water. We got to stay on land. So, if we continue with this, we come to the fish. And I should say first that it starts with heaven and earth. It starts with creation. So it's fixed reality, which is the earth, and then the heaven or the air. So we get energy and matter in the beginning. But then there was darkness on the earth, or unconsciousness, ignorance. Then deity, or the all, said, let there be light. That was consciousness, an idea as to what they wanted to do. You have to start with an idea. The idea, if it's a good idea, if it's what you want, it's light. If it's not what you want, it's going to be confusion and it's going to be darkness. But if you have light, it means that you have a positive, good idea that you want to bring to fulfillment. And that's when you say, let there be light. So, the light and the darkness are separated. So after light is separate from the unconsciousness, then the spirit, or heaven or wind, hovers over the waters. So then there was a firmament, or something like whatever that firmament means, that's between waters above and waters beneath. If water is feelings, emotions, and mind that's unsettled, then we have light or truth, or our idea, separated from the ignorance, and then we have the water, which is never actually created, separately from the earth. It just says he made the heaven and the earth. And then it goes into talking about the water on the earth. So the earth includes the water. That's why the whole Mother Earth is both the water and the earth, matter. And she is also the subject matter of everything, isn't she? The spirit moves upon the deep. It's a very deep thing. It's unknown. It's dark down there. There's a lot that can come out of there. Even fears and problems that you don't understand. They're scary. Come up out of the bottomless pit. Beasts, and this is what we're going to find here in the water soon. So earth or matter is including the water, a fluid matter. And so solid and fluid is fixed beliefs and deep unknown ideas that we haven't any idea what they mean. If the light is thought, the wind being the result of wind upon matter, causing motion or energy, it's mostly when the wind or the energy hovers over the unknown. So solid and fluid is fixed beliefs and unknown, unsettled thoughts. If the light is thought, the wind being the result of wind upon matter, causing motion or energy, is mostly when the wind or energy hovers over the unknown. The deep. It doesn't say what happened when energy hovered over water, unknown, unsettled forms, but immediately says, as soon as the wind or the Ruach Elohim is hovering over the waters, which is a feminine word, the all, plural, decided, let it be. He said, let it be. And he separated light, knowing light from darkness, unknowing. Then separated he the waters by a firmament. So he created a separation between two different unsettled forms, fluid forms. And it is from these unsettled forms that the all then says, let there be a fixed form. Dry land, fixed solid form. And the land and the sea were made. Then plants were made on the land as ideas, beautiful forms. And then from the sea, he made fish. I would say moving forms, living things within our database. In the ancient language, fish is Dagon. There was a fish deity called Dagon. And I don't really believe that Dagon was a deity. Dagon is a fish, and nobody, even in ancient times, would worship a fish. But they did talk about these cosmic powers and the way that we were all brought into existence. And so one of the parts of this is Genesis 1, the creation story. And there you go. You have the fish that were made on the fifth day. And so the waters are kind of like the database. Unsettled ideas. Lots of data, but not yet brought into the manifestation on screen. So also in Hebrew, Dagon is a seed. It's from the fish or the life that sprang up out of the mire to evolve on land that we get life itself. The birds then were in the sky. And if the birds are from above, they must be inspiration. They represent the inspiration of a higher mind. These are forms, in some sense, living creatures, entities that are all in our peripheral, because these are all part of paradise, which Adam was to have dominion over. So they're not necessarily part of Adam himself, but they're things that he's thinking and bringing into being that he has dominion over, characters and natures. Some from above and some from beneath. So wisdom could be one of these things. Like we said the other day, all the birds like owls and eagles and the fowl, even in one place, it just calls them the fowl, because it mentions in Isaiah 34 even ravens and other birds. It seems that the birds in the sky are higher things like inspiration from above, forethought and wisdom, kindness or something, goodness. So then we have animals, and animals represent natures or dispositions that start as brute forces, anger, lust, the lower ego. Then Adam is to tame the creation as the house of deity or the prince, Elohim's tabernacle, the temple of the deity, is the temple of the being, the I am. Separated from him was Eve, the conscious mind, experiencing and partaking of this world, partaking of the tree of the knowledge of good and bad. So Adam received knowledge by means of Eve. He didn't get it. He didn't partake of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil himself. Separated from him was Eve. Eve is the conscious mind. She's the one who's going through the experience and partaking of this world and partaking of the tree of the knowledge of good and bad. And it's through the conscious mind that the higher conscious being receives the knowledge. Because the being itself is in this tabernacle, in this body, but it's separated from the conscious mind. The higher mind is separated from the conscious mind. The higher mind can never be defiled. Remember, Paul says that the woman was deceived. She was thoroughly deceived, but Adam was not deceived. The higher consciousness is never deceived. But the conscious mind, the woman, can be deceived. But it's through this deception or this consciousness and this experience, partaking of the knowledge of good and evil, that she knows through all the experience what is good and evil. And so the knowledge of good and bad, through the conscious mind, the higher Adam being received the knowledge. And so through this conscious mind, the higher mind receives the knowledge. Eve ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and brought it to Adam. And then he ate, so that they saw that they were naked, which means that they had originally no covenant or plan, but didn't feel ashamed. Or did they have any guilt? Guilt is not something real. It's only a temporary thing that happened when we became confused or separated from our higher consciousness. So when they partook of knowledge, they knew they were naked. Thus, they knew they needed a plan of salvation. They needed their white robe, which is what we put on, Christ. When we become a Christian, we put Christ on. And we get white robes, or we receive our righteousness. That's our original bodies of light. So, we then are eventually supposed to get our white robes, which is the plan of salvation. And that's the white robe when we graduate. So we graduate through this knowledge of good and evil, through the classes. So they needed to learn knowledge to become as deity, which was already what they were within themselves. So they needed the new covenant of love, the perfect bond of union. They needed the wedding garment. That's what the white robe is, the wedding garment, to be one. But they didn't get the wedding. They believed the voice in the garden that spoke in the wind or the breezy part of the day, or the wind. What is it talking about? They're not translating that. Yahweh spoke. The voice spoke from the wind. And what is the wind? That's the energy that comes down and starts making the motions and starts the process. So once the light hit the world, the light of your idea and the ideas that you have, the enlightenment starts the motion going, and then that motion is the wind. And in that wind is a voice. And the voice said, which they believed in the garden, do not partake of the knowledge of good and evil. And that voice cursed them and separated them. made them divorce. Remember, Jesus was talking to the Pharisees, and they asked him about divorce. They said, well, Moses said we could divorce. And Jesus said it was not that way from the beginning. What deity is yoked together, let no man put asunder. So Moses put asunder or made a divorce. But it wasn't that way from the beginning. The man and the woman were one. So in order to become one again, we don't need the covenant of Yahweh. That was the curse. That was the school room, the classroom. The Apostle Paul calls it the schoolmaster that leads to Christ. That we will learn by obedience, by the things that we suffer. That's the garments that we have that are temporary, this temporary class. What we're trying to do is get the wedding garment, which is the white garment. So, the law covenant is the first covenant. It was given to Adam and Eve when they received their garments of skin, or they killed an animal. It was a covenant of death, and they were clothed upon with the animal that they killed. They took a life, they murdered it, and they transferred that life to themselves. A life for a life, but it's taking a life, and therefore it's not forever. They had to do it from year to year, and then eventually they died. That's the law covenant. That's the garments of skin. That's the covenant of death. That's the covenant of eating flesh. Understand that garment can also be likened to the priesthood garment. You put that on, and now you're in a specific class. When you graduate, you get a black robe in this world because it is darkness. You're being deceived. And that's the priesthood of Moses, or the governments of the world. But when we become Christians, we put on a white garment, you see. And this is why doctors wear white, and scientists, although they have apostatized, they have fallen. But philosophy, you see, and science is the true priesthood, which is truth. And then Jesus said Moses was wrong because it was not that way from the beginning. What El has bound together, let no man, not Moses, not Moses' law, put asunder. So the new covenant was the wedding, which is the white robe. And this is a powerful psychological, metaphysical decode of the creation myth. We're moving from the physics of motion to the mechanics of the soul. When we frame the fall not as sin, but as a divorce caused by a lower law, the voice that forbids knowledge, then we align with the ancient Gnostic perspective, which is the scriptures, that the curse was the actual fragmentation of the once unified consciousness, the lower and the higher consciousness, which is Adam and Eve. Now, marriage versus divorce. The original state was nakedness or innocence, in that sense of a lack of friction. If you don't know you're naked, there's no separation between your inner self and your lower outer world. You're just one. But when Eve, or the conscious mind, the experiencing mind, partakes of the fruit or the data experience, she brings it back to Adam, the I am being. This creates self-awareness, and suddenly the I sees the me. So we hit upon this profound point here regarding Moses and Jesus. If the law, or the voice in the garden, says you are separate, you are cursed, you must cover it up, it is essentially a decree of divorce between the light and the matter. It creates a guilt-based reality where the being feels unworthy of its own divinity. But the white robe, the wedding garment, as I said, the wedding garment or the new covenant is the reunion. It's the realization that the light, the thinker, and the land, the fixed beliefs, were never actually two separate things. They were just energy at rest and energy in motion, playing hide and seek. In this view, the graduation is when the being stops listening to the voice of the law that demands separation and instead puts on the robe of integration, or the I am, and the experience that Eve received, and then are married in the temple or the body. So, who is the serpent then? The serpent is the wisest of the animals. The deeper purpose or knowing on the animal character that because of the curse of the lower ego, the animals were in fear because of the law of sacrifice. Meat eating and the covenant with death. But the lamb will eventually lie down with the wolf, or the wolf nature. When the Christ child of the miraculous birth, is born, it is without fear, and it plays in the hole of the cobra, which is the carnal flesh, and that wise creature gets wings, and that's the body of the Christ child, and his nature is harmonized and restored to its original paradisical glory. And you know that in astrology today, Scorpio is a scorpion, of course, not an eagle. But if you look at the house of Scorpio, you'll see there are two other constellations in there. One is Serpens, the serpent, and the other is Aquila, which is the eagle. So that is the house of the eagle. But sometimes it's a serpent and sometimes it's an eagle. It's called Scorpio, right? But it's sometimes serpents and sometimes Aquila, because this phoenix bird had wings, but was more like a dragon or a serpent with wings, and that's the original serpent. So that's pretty interesting. So the book of Genesis is really the story of creation, not only outside of time from the very beginning of the universe, but it's the story of how we as individuals create our reality to make our world what we want it to be. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah, I came up here to think a little bit because, you know, it's getting really discouraging seeing YouTube ban my channel to a point. You know, I asked AI about what they were actually doing with my channel, and they said what they're doing is that even though I have 216,000 subscribers, they do not send a thumbnail to any of them. They just don't send them out. They've decided to shut my channel down. And normally, most channels would have already collapsed and been down to 0 people watching. But enough of you, maybe 1,000 of you, are still watching and going and finding me every day and watching all my videos because you choose to seek my videos out and watch them. And they send notifications to a select group that keep coming back. But if any of you stop watching for 2-3 days, then they stop sending you, you know, thumbnails or promotional clips in your feed. So I'm now down to just a few hundred. We're not even... The other day I did a video that, you know, I have to do once in a while, something about politics or something to get anybody to click on my channel. And maybe just a few months ago I could have made that video and it would have went to 50,000 people, or maybe a year ago, and then maybe a few months ago 10-15,000. But now that video that should have gone, probably should have gone viral back in the day, only went to 1,700, I think. And like I said, probably 2 months ago it would have gone to 6,000. Because it was a subject that everybody, you know, will click on, that type of thing that everybody wants to see, the breaking news or current events and things like that, or anything about Trump. Everybody clicks on it. So the best video I could have done only got me over 1,000 views. And a pretty good video now only gets me about 500 views. And that means that I'm quickly being shoved out of the limelight. There's not going to be anybody watching here at all pretty soon. And I know a lot of you smug preterists are glad to see that, and you think it's because I'm an idiot. How dare I believe in the Bible? I guarantee the things that I've been talking about would have an audience in the world, a big audience, because it's very important information. Not only in the interpretation of Scripture, but just the beautiful ideas that we've been talking about and the revelations we've been having. So we're quickly going downhill. I don't know if I can do this much longer, guys. For my own self, I like to do the research, and why not just go ahead and make the videos, right? Well, it's a lot of work to do the videos. I'm not making anything whatsoever as far as monetary wise. I could put the commercials all the way through the videos so that about every 5 seconds you get another commercial, but that wouldn't, since I'm not getting any views, it wouldn't really help me much anyway. And I decided a while back not to, have all those commercials. So I only allow the commercials at the very beginning of the video and at the very end. But even if I went ahead and let them put commercials all the way through the videos, if I'm only going to get 500 people watching a day, I'm not going to make more than about $100, a month or something or less. And it's not enough to live on or do anything with. I'm to the point now where I don't even have dog food for the dogs. And so I'm going to have to start, I'm praying about it and asking the Lord what He wants me to do. I know there's always a calm before the storm. I do believe the Lord wants me to do this and be here for you guys to share, current events and talk about the Scriptures and share the revelations that the Lord gives me and all of this. I know there's a number of you that appreciate the channel, but I'm telling you guys, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just down to the point where nobody's watching. And it gets discouraging. I don't know that I can even make the content as well as I used to, because first of all, I don't have the money to do a lot of things that, to take drives and go anywhere and to see, various places. I don't have the gas. I don't have, there's a lot of things I want to do that I'm going to have to scale back. And so, yeah, I wish there was somebody out there. It blows my mind. There isn't anybody out there that is willing to do something, to buy somebody out there's got some money or something, can buy a radio station, or could, if you had any influence, you could get me on a radio station. I could do an hour a day on the radio or something. But YouTube does not want me voicing my opinions. And I think they're going to keep on the pressure until I'm gone. Of course, I know that the Lord is greater than the world. He that is in me is greater than he that is in the world. And I know that whatever the Lord wants to do is what's going to happen. So I'm not worried. I'm completely confident that the Lord will show me the path to take. But I am making this, at the end of this video, these remarks, because I want you guys to know what's going on, that this is not because my content is not good enough to get out there. I mean, there are people that they have whole channels on watching a snowflake fall from the sky, or oh, this is the crazy snow and it's purple, and oh, I went to the desert and I saw a rock. Well, I go to the desert and see rocks all the time and nobody wants to see it because nobody's getting a thumbnail. It's not coming up in their feed. If there's anything anybody out there can do, if anybody has connections with YouTube or anybody has any connections with somebody who's got a radio station or a website that can put this content out to a few thousand people, you notice that I don't run those ads where they're like commercials that they want me to sponsor some brand of something. I don't get involved in any of that, and that's probably one of the reasons why I'm not financially doing very well, because I refuse to put any of those ads or sponsor any of their products. So any help would be appreciated. But I mean, if you could think of any way to help get me out there. I know a lot of you get tired of trying to share my videos with people that you say your family doesn't want to watch it or whatever. Well, there's plenty of people that do want to watch. And if I was treated fairly like all the rest, I know that my channel would go to a lot more people. And it would just be nice if somebody had some idea somewhere. It's got to be somebody that you could get these videos to that would see the worth of this information. But, if not, then that's not the Lord's plan, I guess. And we'll just have to wait and see what the Lord has in mind. I think that it may just be that I've made it all this time and the tribulation is about to begin, and this is all just the way it's supposed to be. And maybe during the tribulation things will be different. They'll just let me go out and get the message out then, or maybe I'm not supposed to be doing this on the camera during the tribulation. It's going to be in person, and some of you will start realizing you got to come out in the mountains, and you'll all come out. I don't know what's going on, but we'll see. And so I guess I'll just go ahead and leave it there and head back down to the cabin and bid you a good day. The Lord loves you guys. His grace and His peace will be with you. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one. Oh, now the dogs are after me. Hi, doggies.